what we do is we decode your unique pathway to elite health, elite energy, and longevity. That's what the core of what we do is we decode that for you, and you'll understand why as I go through this. And the big thing we want to do is we want to help you get a greater return on all of the other investments that you're making, okay, in your marketing, in your staff and team development, in the growth of your practice. Well, you can't do that if you show up to work every day and you're exhausted, okay? And I'll share a little bit about my story in a minute and why I'm in this business. And so this talk, rather than about marketing or business development, I'm talking about you. So I want to kind of work with you and get real with you, okay? And so I started a couple years ago the Tiger Medical Institute. I'm really excited to share that with you. A little bit about the founders. This is Dr. Matthew Mcnamee. I'll tell you about him in a second. A little bit background on me. Emily shared I was a corporate banker for 15 years. I rose to a regional president role in my mid-30s, and after bringing in about $500 million of new business in middle market commercial lending. And that was a grind, and that wasn't good enough, so I quit that and started a retail business called Pet Supplies Plus, which is a franchise pet superstore system around the country. I was a franchisee, and I started out with one store, and with a great team around me, we built that to 47 stores in 6 states, and we became the largest franchisee in the system over 21 years. Now here's the problem though. I got about 4 or 5 years ago, I hit a wall. I couldn't feel anything anymore. I couldn't sleep. I was sleeping 2 hours a night. I'd go to bed at 10 or 11, fall asleep, wake up at 1, and then I would toss and turn the rest of the night. And this went on for a decade. I was traveling 130 nights a year to see all the stores. I was irritable. I was short with people. I didn't have good emotional control. And really, in general, I was breaking down. And it was affecting my marriage and my relationship with everybody around me. And I didn't understand what is wrong with me. I've always been this high performer, and I felt like I was going down the rails, and the rails were getting wider and wider, and my legs were trying to stay on them, and I was in quicksand. Anybody identify with any of that? Yeah. So anyway, I ended up selling the company to my partners so that I could fix me. And so I quit. I took a year off, and I did a deep dive study on peak performance. How did I get here? And also, I met Dr. Mcnamee, who was working in a clinic in LA after spending nearly a decade in Silicon Valley. And I shared with him, my situation. And he goes, well, I've got a vision for something I want to share with you. So we talked about it, and he rebuilt me. And today, my health markers, my energy, everything is reset literally into my late 20s, early 30s. And that's what my labs look like, is somebody in their 30s, early 30s. And I was really going in a wrong direction in a bad way fast. So that's a little background about me, and that's why I'm in the business, is I want to help people not do what I did. Dr. Mcnamee, great story. He's a naturopathic MD. He's going to finish his board certification as an anti-aging doctor this fall. He's also getting certified in SPECT imaging, which is something the Amen clinics, you've ever heard of Daniel Amen, the Amen clinics? So we're partnering with them, so all of our clients get that SPECT scanning when they work with us. And then he does advanced blood labs and all of that we'll talk about later. He's also becoming a certified pre-code doctor. There's a Dr. Bredesen at UCLA who is the only guy in the world who has figured out a way to prevent Alzheimer's, memory loss, and dementia. And he can actually reverse it in people who already have it. He can't cure them, but he can get them better, much better. And so anybody that works with our clinic gets the benefit of that. So you get the protection of your brain. And we all know if our brain doesn't work, everything else we're talking about here is out the window, right? So a little background about him. Let's talk about Dennis. Let's talk about you. You go to school for nearly a decade, right? You incur a lot of debt, and then you spend a decade building your practice and paying off that debt. And then you get into your 40s, maybe early 50s, and where you've got serious stress, you're working in small, dark spaces where millimeters make a huge difference. You also want to be great at what you do, so you push yourself to a very high standard, and it's the perfect prescription for burnout. And one study I found was 84% in the dental field experience burnout at some stage of their career. From the average American perspective, it's not much better. 77% of Americans say stress is so significant it affects them physically, mentally, and emotionally. And here's a stunner to me. 6 in 10 adults in America have a chronic disease. 6 in 10. That's a huge number, and 4 in 10 have more than 2. So they have like 3. Okay, that means serious reduction in your longevity, serious reduction in your performance, because these things are what I would call interference. The performance formula is performance equals skill minus interference. And you want your skill to take over. So a lot of what we do is get rid of the interference for you physically. Deloitte studies revealed 77% of the general public experience burnout in their job, and you see the rest there. So let's talk about what we do now. So one of the big things we do is we find out what are your hidden health risks. And I think I've shared with some of you, I found out as an adult, I had become a long distance runner, loved it, ran a half marathon last year. For some reason, I never did my own genetics report. I was worried about everybody else first in our beta groups and our clients. So I ran it, had mine done, and the geneticist said, you absolutely should never run again. And I'm like, why? He says, you have a very bad marker for sudden cardio death syndrome based off inflammation, and running will cascade that. So has anybody ever heard of somebody dying on a treadmill that was otherwise healthy? Probably had that. So I'm that guy. So I found that out. So I had completely changed my workouts. No more high-intensity interval training, no more long-distance running. Now it's hiking and cycling. So what's the value of that, right? So that's one thing. And then we find out what your current reality is through all of the imaging of your cardio system, your brain, your microvasculature, as well as blood. When you do our blood test, you walk out of there, they've taken 12 vials of blood out of you. That's how extensive it is. So Dr. Matt likes to say it's a 10x over what you're doing at your general practitioner. So this is our process at a very high level. We assess in phase 1, and then we customize in phase 2, and then in phase 3 we coach. And this is one of the areas where we really differentiate. I have a friend that went to a high-end clinic, spent a lot of money, got a big report, and that was it. And all of this hinges on if you can create behavior change in your life. And so we've engineered and designed our coaching program to get maximum behavior change. And we use good science. We use B.J. Fogg's Tiny Habits behavior change model from Stanford. So here's our process at a very high level. If you start at the testing, health history, and imaging thing, so from a testing, we'll run a genetics test. We partnered with a company called Metabolic Code, which is AI-assisted blood analysis. And Dr. Matt also, based on your unique health history and what he sees in your labs, will actually order additional tests. And I don't put any limits on him. I say you order as much as you want on this person because we want the best clinical outcomes. So he may order a stool test for your gut biome or something like that. And then you have to come to Seattle for the first visit. We're in Bellevue, Washington, where you're going to do your SPECT scan and your cardiovascular imaging to make sure we don't have any blockage that would be concerning. So while we're waiting for all those results, your coach takes over with you and starts stress and sleep training right off the bat. So we get you sleeping better, sleep hygiene training. You get an Oura ring, and you hook it to our dashboard, and then our coach sees all your data every day. We teach you something called heart coherence training, which is something I did before I speak. Every time I do it, it slows the heart rate down, gets me in a peak state to be able to communicate. But you can do that for a big meeting or to get to sleep, because the big problem is turning the body off. So then we get into the set priority stage. This is where Dr. Matt and Dr. Adelia, who does the genetics piece, integrates all of this information. And then the next stage, creates a singularly unique, one-of-a-kind plan for you based off your unique genetic profile, as well as your health history, and also your current state of all of your different labs. Does that make sense? So there's no cookie cutter to this with anybody. It's very specific to you. And then you go for an additional, that's about a 4-month process to do all of that. And then you work with your coach every 2 weeks for the next 8 months, getting that behavior change that you need. We'll also put you on, this is something new we're excited about, called Genomic Supplementation. And so if Bill was a customer of mine, he would get a Bill pill. And our geneticist and the doctor work together, and they create a unique formulation based off what you uniquely need to support your suboptimal genetic markers, as well as move your blood markers into optimal range. It gets all built into that pill so that you're not taking 17 pills, you're taking 1. Okay, so that's kind of the program in a nutshell. So your health evolution this is kind of our model of how we get results. Between Dr. Matt, you'll probably consult with him 6 to 8 times during that year, and then you'll be with your coach 24 times or as much as you need. And our whole model is built on, if we help you gain more awareness. So listen, when you get your genetic report and all of your labs, it's the truth. Okay, it confronts you. There's no debating it. I saw this in Men's Health magazine, or I heard about this study on coffee. It's the facts, okay? And it motivates change because now you've got better awareness, so you can start to make better choices, and then when you make better choices, you get better results. So that's really how it's built. Here's the 5 outcomes we want to get with each of you. 1 is sleep. We want to optimize your sleep. We want you to learn how to self-regulate through stressful situations so that nobody can keep you from stress. But what happens is if you don't learn to self-regulate, then that stress response stays turned on, and then your autonomic nervous system is in heavy sympathetic tone, which is you're in the stress response, the fight, flight, fight mode. So, and you don't even know you are. And when you're there chronically, that drives disease. Okay, that's very proven. There's no debating that. And so we teach you how to get out of that. And for a lot of people, the first time they do this, they didn't even notice. And now they feel differently, and now they notice when they get into it. So they regulate through it. And it's also good if you're going in for an important surgery that you got to do or a procedure. What we teach you can do it for 3 minutes before you go in, and it just gets you dialed right in. Okay? So that's a peak performance piece. And then we want to get you trending to the optimal range and all of your measured markers. Make sure we're attacking that hidden health risk if you've got one. And then obviously peak performance, we're going to improve your in-the-moment performance and then give you better energy, better stamina, and better focus. Because the ability to focus, to be in that flow state, what Bill was talking about, or in the zone, physiology is a big part of that. If your physiology is bad, you can't maintain your attention for long periods of time. Okay? And lastly, longevity. All of this, if you do everything we're talking about here, it's going to massively improve your odds for greater longevity. I can't sit up here and say it's guaranteed. We all know that. My lawyer would kill me. But it doesn't take a leap of logic to understand that this has strong anti-aging effects. Okay? And our goal is to help you become your own best health coach so that you're not completely reliant on us forever. Okay? 5 things we want to do, 5 changes. We want to lower your risk of hidden health risk, bring you into the optimal range for all your health test markers. We want to establish a pattern of better health choices. Okay? We want to supplement you genomically so it's targeted specifically to your needs. And then lastly, we want to give you more energy and optimism and peace of mind. Here's the difference. You're going to get a comprehensive evaluation in Seattle that's second to none. It's integrating the brain, all of your major systems, your genomics, top notch. We're going to discover your hidden health threats, and then after you leave, it's 100% virtual, so it's built for busy people, okay, in your time schedule. You get the health coach integrated, which really extends the behavior change, and then we're going to hyper-personalize it, and then we're going to give you peace of mind. And I want to just tell you a couple stories. Mitch in particular, this guy is a celebrated industrial designer, has over 10 million in royalties coming to him in the next 5 years. This guy woke up one day with a diagnosis at 60 years old of type 1 diabetes, which is very rare for an adult. He had an A1C of 14.7. And working with Dr. Matt said to him, he said, your problem isn't the diabetes, your problem is you have an autoimmune disorder, and we're going to attack that. We're going to get to the root of that. And he worked with him for 9 months, and you can see up there now his A1C is 5.6. And his primary care doctor's like, that's a miracle, I don't know what you're doing. So they're taking him off insulin now, or severely limiting it. And Mitch said to me, he goes, the thing that I have now is I thought I had a very short lifespan, and now I feel like I can live into my 80s and see my grandkids grow up. So that's the kind of stories we're getting. Real quick, the Ernie story up there. I don't know if you guys know triglycerides, but that's a really bad number. My dad's had 8 heart attacks, and his is 300. And this guy was walking ready for a stroke or a heart attack, and he couldn't walk a mile. He was 30 pounds overweight. A year later, I had dinner with Ernie. He was so excited. He told me, he said, I'm at 140 now, and I never took any statins. I did only what Dr. Matt asked me to do, and the behavior change you guys coached me in. And he goes, and I'm taking my son on a Boy Scout rite of passage hike, 65 miles. And what's the value of that memory for Ernie that he could not have done? Like, he might have died in the past year. So those are the kind of stories we're getting. Patrick's a Big Ten basketball coach at Penn State who couldn't sleep, and we fixed that among several others. So real quick, I want to do this, and then I'll be done. You think about when you're in your 20s and 30s, you have all kinds of time. This is from the book Die with Zero by Bill Perkins. I would encourage all of you to get that book. Die with Zero by Bill Perkins. So you're in your 20s, you have time and you have health, but you don't have any money. We're going to school, we're building our families. And then you get in that middle range where you've got a little bit of everything. And I would argue not much time. I know when we had 2 kids at home and I was building a business, I had no time. But I had health and I had some money. You get a little bit later in life, and I don't think this starts at 60. We say at 50. You've got a lot more time, especially if you've listened to Bill or Emily or some of these other people and you've re-engineered your business so it doesn't make you a slave. You've got time and you got money, but if you aren't careful, you can lose your health. And Bill Perkins calls that the health-wealth trade-off. And what we want to do is, you see this intersection right here, we want to move it this way for you. You know, my dad's 79 years old. If I gave him $1 million tomorrow, he couldn't enjoy it because he has 3 chronic diseases. He can't go anywhere. And at a time in your life when you should be your best, you should be the most wise, have the most connections, have the most intuition. It would be a shame for you to get sick and not be able to take advantage of what you've worked so hard to create. And so that's really, you know, our whole point is yeah, it's very clinical, but we want to create more memories with you and help you get that longer runway to do what you do. And so the value of your health is priceless, and we want you to become a health investor instead of a healthcare consumer. Okay? So that means getting ahead of everything and investing in yourself. Okay? You invest in a lot of other things. Invest in this. This is your $1 billion asset. And I love this quote: a healthy person has 1,000 wishes, a sick person only one. And we do not want to be that person. So if you'd like to learn more, I wasn't all set up for a fancy program. Next time you see me, Bill will have me re-engineered, and it'll be way better. And I'll be doing NLP on you like he was. So anyway, that's my cell. Anybody is welcome to it. And just text me if you want to know more. Also, I have a book, Unleash the Peak Performer Within You. I didn't bring any because I didn't have them. I will mail you a physical copy signed by me if you want it. Just text me or email me. And then this is our website right here, tigerpi.com. We have a second company called Tiger Performance Institute that trains, researches, studies peak performance. And that's the marketing arm for the medical clinic. So that's the website you want to go to for any information. So thank you very much.